So if you're old, you may need to ask your sons or daughters for help, but it's available wherever you can get digital movies. And the star, Adam Edge Copeland, is here. Edge, how are you, man?
I'm good. Sorry I'm late. I just finished with Booker, and you know how that goes sometimes. So
Now let me tell you something, Ed. You a big guy. You a big guy.
so me and Book were just waxing poetic on the wrestling industry. So sometimes that can run a little over.
Well, good. I hope you left a little bit in the tank because, first of all, I didn't even realize that my co-host, Stat Guy Greg, is a self-proclaimed edgehead. So
yes,
you don't self-proclaim. I mean, you are. That's
exactly.
It.
Exactly. We're proud.
I am giving you the tap of honor. You're an edgehead.
That's it. I've been knighted.
Yes.
And by the way, Edge, I saw you tweet earlier. Happy Canada Day, first of all.
Thank you. 28 years ago today, it was my first match.
So where was that match 28 years ago today?
Monarch Park in Toronto, or Toronto, as we would say it. I had to, make sure everyone understood me. On Canada Day, and it was about 100 degrees, and the canvas was so hot that when you took a bump, it felt like you were burning your back.
Who'd you work with?
It was a handicap tag. It was myself, the Gallant Knight, El Fuego,
okay,
Joe Legend, the American Gladiator. Yeah, that was the match.
So was this Sexton Hardcastle, or was this another?
This was Adam Impact.
Adam Impact.
Yeah, I had some real good names over the years.
You ever think about how great your career would have been if you just gone to TNA with that name? I mean, poof.
Just Adam Impact. Like, yeah.
Let's do something we don't normally do and work backwards because you had the match a few weeks ago, and going into it, the greatest wrestling match ever. Listen, when hosting on the WWE Network, I of course put it over as it's going to be the greatest wrestling match ever. Here on the podcast, we of course questioned this billing as a wrestling fan because that is a very difficult thing to even.
Yeah.
It's a tough thing to put. Yeah, it's just very tough. And then I thought you were sort of in a no-win situation. Like, could it, if you're not the greatest wrestling match ever, it could be viewed as a disappointment. And if it is that great, maybe it doesn't get the credit it deserves. Yet somehow, I think you guys, I don't know if it's the greatest wrestling match ever, but it was a hell of a match. Were you happy with it?
I was very happy with it. And what I did is I threw that greatest wrestling match ever out of the equation almost as soon as Vince told me. Because there's no such thing. It's completely subjective. I would guarantee that all three of us are going to have their idea of what the greatest wrestling match ever is. Who's the greatest band ever? What's the greatest song ever? What's the greatest movie ever? There is no such thing. So when you can lose that and realize, oh, okay, this is just a promotional tool, got it. But what I wanted to do with it is try and make it a love letter to wrestling, a love letter to this thing that I have loved my entire life. So how do we do that? All right, well, let's have Howard Finkel introduce this.
Beautiful.
Amazing.
Yeah, we love
Let's
that.
have the old MSG microphone. Let's have old school introductions with Charles Robinson in a long sleeve shirt and a bow tie explaining the rules to us. I wanted to try these pickup shots after the fact to see if they would work. I don't think they did, but apparently Vince loved them and a couple of them got put in, and I wasn't a huge fan of that. But beyond that, I was really happy with the fact that we were able to go out there, have a 48, 50-minute, whatever it was, match, and with barely an audience, and try and pull this thing off. If anyone got too bogged down on I don't know where I'd rate it. You're missing the point, man. It's really just supposed to be a love letter to wrestling and something to try and enjoy when nothing else is happening in the world, except for a lot of really bad things.
Yeah.
That's all it was. And to be able to go out there and go 48 minutes in essentially my second match back, I'm proud of that. and feel like I didn't really miss a step, even though I tore my triceps.
Eh. When, by the way, when did that happen? When did the
RKO? You know, in talking to the doctor once I woke up from surgery, he said, there's a good chance you went in with it partially torn already. My elbow had been bugging me for probably about a month. And what I learned from this is that I need to listen to that from now on. I'm not 25. Hell, I'm not 35.
Yeah, you're not Adam Impact anymore.
No Adam Impact. Adam Impact just would have made it through. What I need to realize now is if my elbow is aching and burning, there's probably something going on. I'm just thankful I made it through the match, to be perfectly honest. And contrary to reports, we did it once straight through. I made it through it. And then after that, we did 4 pickup shots, you know, after we filmed the entire match. And
what did you guys insist on that? Because I know that tapings have been complicated. So
we did the match straight through. Boom, done. And I should have been satisfied with that because that's all it needed to be. But in driving down to Orlando on one of these trips, because I've been driving them a pickup, I haven't been flying. When they told me the greatest wrestling match ever, I was like, okay, well, how do we make this thing different? What if I wore a GoPro and did it this way and just tried? Because if you're going to try anything, now's the time, right? So right now you can get away with a boneyard match, and now you can get away with these angles because you're not in front of a live audience. So I just wanted to try something different. If it didn't work, great. We don't put it in the match. But if it does work, now we have a new tool for the entire industry and for the company going forward to be able to dip into. Because if these work, imagine the camera angles you can get for a ladder match. Imagine the camera angles you can get for any kind of stipulation match. That was my thinking. Now I can look back and go, they weren't needed. But
you had the right attitude because, you know, frankly, I think as fans, week to week, there's frustration when those risks aren't being taken. Because right now, you're right, it is the time. If they just go out there every week and do the same thing with no crowd and try to pretend it's all the same, it's not taking advantage. It's not doing what I think what great art forms do, which is making the most out of whatever the available options are.
You're trying to adapt, right? And you're just throwing spaghetti at the wall to see what sticks. And that's really what my thought process was with those pickup shots. Again, once I saw them in, because the first cut I got was just our match with none of the shots put in. And I was like, right, that's all it needs to be. Vince wanted to put them in because we did them and let's see how it feels, how it works. I didn't like them. For me, it took me out of the match. Even though they were like 2 seconds long, it just took me out of it. But that's also why I didn't mind the piped in crowd noise. That's why I didn't mind, like soccer does it, you know, all these other things do it. So why can't we try it too? So I get that. And I get promoting it as the greatest wrestling match ever. I get trying to use some different things to get people interested and invested. And let's face it, there's been more talk about this match, I think, because it was billed as that than there would if it wasn't billed as that.
It's very true.
Yep. And you did something that I think was smart.
I think the final thought is I think that was Vince's thought process. And I think in that regard, it worked.
Yeah. Agreed.
And in promoting it too, I think you did something really that I thought was smart on social media is that you were going the other way with it. Everything was the greatest blank ever. Like if it was the greatest lemonade you ever had, it was the greatest pizza you ever had. I think that helped manage people's expectations.
I had to have some fun with it, right? Because it was a pressure cooker. You know, a lot of what I was saying in my promos was true, which is why I think the promos worked. Man, that's my first straight wrestling match at that point coming out. It was like almost 9.5 years. And what a lot of what Randy was saying in the promos was true. A Royal Rumble is not a straight up wrestling match. A last man standing match is not a straight up wrestling match. So now you're under the microscope. You are in a straight up wrestling match, and now it's being billed that. So as much as I tried to throw that title out of the way, you still want to live up to something. You still want to try and have something that can be at least be remembered, right? So, you know, and then by the time we're done, somebody told me it's like close to 50 minutes. And I was like, well, damn, I feel pretty great. My triceps a little sore though.
Right. Now, did you think Did you think the Mania match? What do you think of the Mania match? I thought it was very good. I did understand the criticism of it being a bit long. I thought that one could have been shaved down a bit. Not that I know anything, but I didn't feel that way about this one. What did you think about the Mania match relative to this one?
I don't really concern myself. Sometimes I just consider the source, right? And if I can have my peers, enjoy it, then I feel like, okay, because they've been in there and they've done it. And so they know kind of the thought process of how it feels to be in there. And a lot of what Randy and I had to do on that day was on the fly, because a lot of our plans involved going outside and going on the roof of the performance center and all of these things. Well, by the time we filmed it, it was still daylight. When it's going to air is not. Okay, crap. We got to wing it. So what you saw was two guys, without saying a word to each other, winging 41 minutes or whatever of a fight. So everything could have been heard. So we just had to go. So
that's kind of completely against what I think people thought they were actually going to be getting.
What you got was two guys just going in and fighting. And when people say, well, it was just a fight. Well, yeah, think of the story.
That was the point.
It's supposed to be a fight. This guy dropped my wife with an RKO.
Yeah.
You're not.
By the way, she took it maybe better than anyone else in the business today. But
she has that uncanny ability. She's
really good.
She didn't tear triceps, so I mean, we gotta give it to her.
Yeah, right. Now, mind you, she didn't springboard into it off the second rope. Right?
Oh, that's fair. To be fair,
and she's not 46, so. But to me, the story, because the story jumped into high gear right out of the gate, right from the Royal Rumble on. It started with something simple, me eliminating Randy. But then the next night it jumped into kind of hyperdrive. So you can't go to a straight wrestling match after that. You can't go to a straight wrestling match after someone physically attacks your wife. It's got to be a fight.
And you guys have the history. It may have not been a typical blow-off, but you guys, this is a 10-year history.
It's a 20-year history.
20-year history, yeah.
And it had to be what it was at WrestleMania. It couldn't go in and exchange holds. And my thought process too was, why stay in the ring? There's no audience. It's just,
exactly.
It's flat. It's going to hurt. And, you don't have that to feed off of. What we do have is an ability to go all around this place. So that was my thought process with that. And because of that, I'm really happy. If people want to complain that my first match back, I go 41 minutes, that's your complaint. I'm not supposed to be doing this. After 9 years and a triple fusion in my neck, I went out there for 41 minutes. People complain that, Bill and Brock go out and do 4. So what is it? What do you want?
Right.
I'm going to bust my ass, and I am going to try and give you the best product I possibly can, because I'm not going to phone it in. And to me, that's what WrestleMania was. That's what Backlash was. If you total the time of my 3 matches, I probably put in more time than both of those guys since they've been back.
That is very strong. Thank you for giving us that quotable very early in the podcast. But first of all, I thought both were great. I thought the Backlash match was one for the ages. Like I really do think that it's one of the things.
Agreed.
My question about the COVID period when it comes to wrestling. Listen, it's not going to be the best time in the history of wrestling. It's just not. What are the things we're going to take away? And you guys gave us one of the moments we will take away, which I think is all you can really hope for.
That's all you can work for at this point, really. And if, again, I'm trying to find the positives, because they're there. Sometimes you just got to shovel a lot of crap out of the way to find them. And in terms of, as a performer, I'm looking at the promos. The promos have been a lot of fun to try and wrap your mind around in this atmosphere and what we have in our laps. The matches are not as fun because you feed off of an audience, and that's what you work for, is those reactions from an audience, right? So I look at the promos as the instance that I can look at and go, okay, now I can try and bring some of the things that I've done in acting and bring them into this. That's a lot of fun. So if I'm looking at the positives, that's what I'm taking away from this. And and hopefully when all of this is said and done, those will be the things that I focus on, I guess.
Speaking of acting, Money Plan is available wherever you can find movies next week, Friday. And SGG, I want to bring you in here, but I just want to ask a couple quick things about this time before we move on. Number one, is Randy Orton a different guy than when you left? Because by all accounts, everyone talks about Randy sort of being in a new space. He even came out and expressed his support of Black Lives Matter, which a lot of people were pleasantly sort of surprised to see from Randy.
Yeah.
He's just sort of been a more expressive guy, and you worked with him closely through almost every stage of his career. Is he a different guy now than when you left 9 years ago?
I think Randy's grown up, and I also think he's understood kind of. Sometimes as professional wrestlers, we go, well, I mean, our job is to go out and wrestle. And that's all there is to it. But then with social media now and all of these different outlets to have a voice, you realize that maybe our voice can matter. And if we support something, maybe it can matter. Because I think, again, as a wrestler, you just kind of downplay it or almost self-deprecating, and that, okay, well, we jumping around in tights for a living. Is anybody really going to care what my take is on this? But then you start to understand maybe a lot of people do. Maybe our fan base really can be affected by that. And with that comes maybe a knowledge that you didn't necessarily have before. I think maybe that's where Randy got to, where he finally just understood, oh, we have a voice that can be heard and it can matter. And in terms of as a performer, Randy has always been just top notch. It's just a matter of whether Randy has something that he can be invested in, because it comes so natural to him. And, in coming back, I knew it needed to be with Randy, because I knew if we had this story that he was going to get excited.
So you say that in coming back, you had to work with Randy. Who else is on the hit list? I mean, is there anybody else? Seth Rollins is old. Seth has a debt that he has to pay back too. We didn't forget. He threatened to curb stomp you back when you were in recovery.
Man, that's what's so exciting about this deal. One of the reasons I wanted to come back was to be able to get in with a whole new crop of talent. I come from this weird time frame where I've been able to work Jerry Lawler, Terry Funk, Ric Flair, team with Hogan, Rick Martel, Bad News Brown. Like, I was able to get in the ring with all of the Mr. Perfect, Owen Hart. My gosh, like I've been able to get in with all of them. So to be able to have this gift, put in my lap of being able to come back and looking at this whole new crop of talent who are so talented, so athletically gifted. But if I could get in with them and just show them little tweaks here and there to get more mileage out of some of their athleticism, that's exciting to me. That's really, really exciting. So when I look at this roster, man, yeah, there's Rollins. That's a gimme. There's AJ Styles, who I've never worked, which seems impossible considering today is 28 years for me and he's probably working, 25. Just never in the same place at the same time. A guy like Cesaro, a guy like Shinsuke, Matt Riddle. I look at a guy like Ricochet. Oh my God, I would die to get in there with him and just let's try.
You're not talking past tense. You're making it sound like this is not the end of the line. Then this tricep.
Yeah.
No. Are you kidding? I've torn my Achilles. This is just a minor, pebble in the road.
So do you have a timeline in terms of how long you want to stick around?
I don't want to stick around past the point where I can't pull off the kind of match I did at Backlash, right? Okay. And sometimes we don't know when that is. So I'm depending on Beth for that, honestly. So I don't want to get to a point where I embarrass myself. I also don't want to get to a point where a young guy looks at the sheet and goes, man, that's going to be some work. I don't want to do that. I want them to be able to look forward to it and go, man, this should be fun. So that's kind of where I'm at, on it. And, and like I said, it's not even a knock on guys that go out and do 3 or 4 minutes, but I don't want to do that, right? I want to go out and still be able to, perform at a level that you expected from Edge. And as long as I can do that, I don't know what that window is, though. I think we just got to play it by ear as we go. But the way I felt at Backlash, I think if I had paid more attention to how I felt going in, again, that's what I learned from this. Okay, I need to listen to my body. And yeah, maybe those guys who are doing 4 and 5 minute matches are just way smarter than me.
Yeah, no, that's entirely possible.
I'm just dumb and they aren't.
No, you love this. I mean, we both know in the case of both Goldberg and Brock, bless them both, but this is a business for them both. This is different. You are a fan. You were at the Sky Dome at WrestleMania as a kid. I mean, this is in your blood. It's a different thing.
Yeah, and you know what? It is. It's all I ever wanted to do. You know, this was the only thing. Once I realized that I couldn't play guitar because my hands don't work that way, I gave that up by 5. I realized that wasn't going to happen. I'm not going to be able to really. Okay, I want to be like Roddy Piper and Hulk Hogan and Bret Hart and Shawn Michaels. And then I just happened to grow to 6'4", so it all worked out. But it's
what's that like? What's that like growing to 6'4"? That sounds great.
It's fun.
It happened.
Shut up, SGG.
I went from 5'11" to 6'4" over a summer. My knees were angry.
And at that point, did it become like realistic? We're like, yo, this could actually really maybe happen.
Yeah, you know, because as I'm saying it at 5'11", and it's like, okay,
maybe,
and I'm starting to work out, so maybe. But then you start shooting up, and I'm like, oh, okay, this is all coming together now.
But some of those guys you mentioned are in that 5'11", 6 foot range, though. Like, you know, Owen was, I think, 5'11". Shawn might be right at 6 feet, but I think is like 6'1".
Yeah, I mean, it was going to be doable, but when I got over 6, I went, okay, now if it doesn't work out, it's only because I'm a dumbass.
Yeah. So there's so many parts of your career that are so important. When you think about your career, do you think more about the Hardys and the tag teams you innovated with, or do you think about your history with John Cena? Where does it really start for you when you think about the opponents that really match with you?
I think it's all of them. And I kind of love that part about my career, is that you can actually look at it like some of the guys that really influenced me when I got in the business and I really started to understand the business. So it was Bret and it was Shawn and it was Perfect, and their trajectory, you know, from going from tag team to IC title to, it was a work in progress.
Yep.
And my career followed that. So that was a lot of fun for me. That the template that they set was what ended up being mine as well. So I don't really focus on one aspect of it. I look at kind of, it was segments, sure, but they all mean just as much, I guess. Honestly, more than anything, I want this run to mean more than all of them. Like at the end of this, I want people to go, I think he was better now than he was when he was working John. And I want to do that by doing a bunch of little things that might fly under the radar, but if you're really paying attention, they're there. And that's what I got from watching a guy like Bret Hart, because to me, Bret is Daniel Day-Lewis, and he does the little things that, even without the multiple camera angles that were available at the time, got picked up, but they were so subtle.
Can you tell us something? Because we're both the world's biggest Bret fans. Tell us something.
Here's a for instance, him and 1-2-3 Kid, Monday Night Raw.
I remember that Raw.
He takes an arm drag. The way he sold that, I understood the entire story with just that one little cell. I got it. If you can explain the entire story of that match to me with one cell, my God, now you are on a different plane altogether. And what I loved about Bret's matches is he brought a sense of realism to them, and also he adapted to everyone. So if you look at the King of the Ring, right? He works Razor Ramon, Mr. Perfect, Bam Bam Bigelow. All three are completely different matches. That to me is a testament to someone's ability to be able to work anyone. And when you can work anyone, now you are in a different stratosphere.
Yeah.
The Undertaker obviously has been a topic of conversation because of the last ride, and because we as wrestling fans are so dumb that most of us actually believe this is truly the end. But I do not believe it will be the end. I believe there will be one more. And furthermore, and more importantly, you guys were really together a lot. I mean, there was that SmackDown run where there was a lot of time for you and Undertaker. What was your relationship like, and just how good was he? Because I could argue that at that point in his career, it might have been his prime.
Yeah, well, and here's when you got a great career. There can be multiple times where you could argue it's his prime, right? We really connected on that, because up until that point, we'd never had a singles match. And our second singles match ever was WrestleMania 24. We had one match in Chile, and we went like 45 minutes just to see how we felt. And realized pretty quickly, like, okay, we got something here. And, just to where he was at when I first came in, he was already a locker room leader. And you watch kind of how he was able to keep, I think one of my quotes from the documentary was able to keep the dead man alive. And the way he was able to do that was to change his style and to make tweaks to the character, and then double back and bring back more of the classic Taker, but without the white makeup, and so elements of American Badass and Taker, and then even going forward to now in the match with AJ, it's this triple-headed beast. You're getting Mark Calloway, you're getting American Badass, you're getting the Undertaker. That is a guy who really has an understanding of his character, more so than anybody probably in the history of the industry. That's hard, man. To be able to work at the very tippity top for 30 years, that's unheard of. It really is. With a character who, if you just wrote that list of what that character is on paper and handed it to someone, they'd go, well, that'll never work.
Right,
or
right.
it work in 1991.
But then it's going to die, right?
But it ain't going to work for 30 years. Well, guess what? It did.
Yeah, unreal. SUG, what do you got for Edge?
Yeah. Now, you mentioned talking to some of the younger guys and like working with them. A name I know you didn't mention was Roman.
Oh, you just didn't
get. Could we get the spear and spear battle? Could we get the real spear v spear battle?
Man, we got in there at the Rumble, and sometimes you just get in there with somebody and you feel it right from jump. He's one of those guys. We got in there, and as we're coming together and we're both like getting ready, I was like, ooh, okay, we got something here. He's a guy who you can tell gets it. I love watching his matches. I love his style. You can tell he was raised in this industry. I would love to get in there with him, and I would love to also get in there with him in terms of promos, and really force him and push him to find that level that I know is there. He's Samoan. It's there.
Right. Right.
I would love to be the guy that's trying to light that. And that's a huge thing that I want to try and do.
That's a great way of putting it too, because I think everyone knows it's there with Roman. My one thought about you coming back is that it's going to be so hard to root against you, and I love rooting against you. I mean, I would argue that Bad Edge was the last truly hated bad guy in this business. I mean, if we go back, and I have to go here because one of the most fascinating things in modern wrestling to me is the you and Matt Hardy story, which really catapulted, I think, the visceral hate that lasted.
Yeah.
And we have to give credit to Lita as well, who played into it perfectly. But first of all, let's just start at the beginning of that. Is the friendship you had with Matt overstated for the sake of the story, or is it really sort of as bad as it appeared when looking back at it?
I mean, the Edge and Christian and the Hardys were great buddies. And we would, go to Outback after and grab bite to eat and spitball ideas for matches and all of those things. We didn't ride together. We didn't, it was never that. It was always me and Jay and, or me and Lance or, but we were obviously close because we made our mark together. So when you do that, you share something that will never be that you only share with them, and you throw the Dudleys into that mix, and we will always share that experience together. But after everything went down, I realized, okay, oh gosh, how did I find myself here? What did I do? Now you gotta, face up to it.
So how'd you guys deal with it? How you guys managed to work together? And I know it was a little bit of time had passed, but still, I mean, you guys were both so professional in the ring and
Yeah,
had these
that's the
brutal
thing.
matches. I just give you both, and I talked to Matt about it a few months ago, and I think it's such a remark to me, Adam. I don't know if you thought about it this way. It's the ultimate wrestling story. The point of the story is that you guys are supposed to look like you're hurting each other, but you're really caring for each other. And in this case, there's real anger and animosity where
Mm-hmm.
Matt could want to hurt you, but yet you guys took care of each other.
Well, yeah, you got to be pros. And also, back to my point of finding positives when it doesn't seem like there's any on the surface. You just got to dig underneath the surface. This was one of those. And you have to go, okay, we're here. Now what do we do? Well, let's try and make some money together. And let's try and further both of our careers out of this. And hopefully out of this, we can be not only stronger performers, but maybe stronger people too. And that usually doesn't happen within the context of a wrestling storyline. So it's a little bit more because of that. And I think that's also maybe the first instance of people going, oh, wait, there's reality in this too. Mm-hmm. And that's why it's remembered. And I think in terms of us kind of splitting off from ENC and the Hardys respectively, I think that one was what set everything in motion going forward for both of us. And for Lita as well. I mean, because that flipped her entire character on its head. And she was able to adapt and take it and run with it. When if you had said 2 years earlier, probably the most popular female in the history of the industry could end up being the most despised. I mean, that's not possible.
Nobody's buying that.
Was anything hard about it, that period though? When, I mean, because you essentially had your singles ascent during that time, but I'm guessing, I would imagine in public, it did appear, this is not 2004 and 2005 is not right now. So I'm guessing you guys did still have to deal with some of the repercussions of the whole thing.
Yeah. And I think for me personally, I can only speak for me personally. I realized I put myself in this position, so I have to deal with it. And how do you deal with it? Okay, well, try and be a pro and honestly try and have all of us come out stronger on the back end of it. We're already here. So
make the most. Again,
make the most of it. What are the positives that we can pull out of this in what, when you look at it, go, man, this is a giant negative.
Did you and Jeff stay cool through it, or was that hard too?
We went through a period, as I think any brother who would support his brother, but then, we came out of it on the backside. And I think when we all realized that we ended up in better places anyway, and we all grew from it, it was just a lousy way to do it. But that's all you can do. That's life.
How was the run with Hogan? What can you tell us about that? What stands out when you think about working with Hulk Hogan?
I just felt like a little kid. I really did. Hogan was the guy that I first really just kind of blew the doors off for me. He was the first guy that I saw and went, wait, he's the Incredible Hulk come to life. He's Thor come to life. Like, I can go down and smack hands with that dude at Maple Leaf Gardens if I get the right seat. So to then, be asked what do you think about teaming with Hogan? What are you kidding me? Yeah. I mean, I was at WrestleMania 6 with my Hulk Rules tank top on and a mullet like that. I am in for this.
So that wasn't your idea? Somebody came to you with that?
Yeah. Paul Heyman called me and he said, so we're thinking about this. And I was like, yeah. I mean, anytime that you can inject some truth into something, it's probably going to work, because the audience, they might not necessarily know exactly what it is, but they're going to feel that something, that element of truth in it. If you can find an element of truth in every storyline and just bite into that and hold on to that and use that as your North Star, your compass, then it's probably going to work. And with that, there was so much truth in it. Like, if you watch back the night we won the tag team titles, when Real American hits, I'm actually like singing along to it, and just, I didn't realize I was. When we would do backstage promos, when he would start going into his deal, I would be mouthing it. I didn't know what he was going to say, but I was somehow mouthing his Hulk isms, because I'd grown up watching them. So it was just a blast, and also something that I never assumed would happen, because I didn't think we'd be peers at the same time. I didn't think we'd be in the same company at the same. Just all of those things coming together, and this thing able to happen. I never thought it would be a thing. I never thought I would be doing a pose down with Hulk Hogan in Calgary after a cage match with Kurt Angle.
Yeah,
It's like you said, your career just threads together so many different eras and stars. It's like a who's who.
Yeah. I was really, really lucky in that regard, that I just came in a time when there was still enough of those guys around that I could pick their brains and learn from and get in there with. And that's when you really learn, is when you're in the ring with someone. So I'm working Bad News Brown 7 nights a week out through the Maritimes, and we're going half an hour a night. Man, there's no better way to learn.
What was he like? What can you tell us about Bad News?
Oh man, Bad News. I love that man. He, you see Bad News and you think, oh, and
Bad news. Yeah.
He's a bad man. For whatever reason, he really liked Jay and I. And I think it's because he saw how much we loved wrestling. It wasn't, this didn't work out, so I'm going to try and be a wrestler now. I think he understood that this is all we ever wanted to be. And because of that, he took us under his wing, and he took us to Japan, and he took us to all these places, and requested to work me out in the Maritimes. That was huge, and really one of the first instances of somebody of that level kind of showing me what it can be like when you get to that level. Like, you can take these guys, if you see that they have a passion for this thing, and try and take them under their wing, and then get in there with them and try and teach them. And for me, Bad News, man, he was so important to me as a person, and also as, what he did in the ring for me too.
At that stage in his career, could he still deliver a strong ghetto blaster?
It was strong, man. It was there. I mean, there was a couple nights where I was like, wow, okay.
Did he ever tell you any of his stories that you hear, stories Bruce Pritchard tells about him being like the one guy Andre did not want to mess with?
Bad News didn't need to talk about how bad he was.
It was known. It's known.
Known, man. And I think the truly bad ones, they don't talk about it because they just know.
What about Owen? How did you get to learn much from Owen in the few years you guys were together in WWE?
Yeah, man. Owen was one of those guys also. Like, I'd sit in my art class, right, and just think of ideas if I ever wrestled Owen Hart. Oh, this is what I'd like to do. Oh, maybe we can do this. Maybe we can do that. So to get in there with him in Hamilton, and to be able to have a pay-per-view match with him. We wrestled, a lot against each other in tag team matches and things like that. But to be able to do that was amazing. And what Owen also taught me is to try and have fun when you're on the road, because it can be a grind. So you got to have ways to keep yourself sane. And Owen was like this beacon for that. And he also helped us navigate just the little things that go along with it. Like, okay, if your flight's canceled, he had like this flight book. So he would automatically know which airline to go to catch this flight for this hub to this. So he would connect in Toronto. Okay, our flight's canceled. Let's go over here. And we would just follow him like sheep. And he taught us how to navigate that aspect. And that was huge, massive, because otherwise I would have been sitting in Toronto missing pay-per-views, not knowing what do I do? What do I do? How do I do this? Because of Owen, I figured out how to do it.
How much is there a bond with among, and it is Canada Day, how much of a bond is there when you get to WWE among Canadians? And it was a really strong time, the time that you came in, for how many Canadians there were. Is there a real bond there?
Yeah, because I think especially when we came in, there wasn't a lot. and it hadn't happened a lot. It was still, one of those kind of untapped areas. I think, you had the Hearts and you had guys making their way in Mexico and Japan, but it really wasn't a thing in the WWF at that point so much. You had the Rougeaus and Rick Martel and you had Brett and Owen, but it was still difficult. This is pre all of social media and being able to get your name out there on all of those things. So it was just like up in the Great White North and nobody really knows about you. So when those doors started being cracked open, and it was due to guys like Brett and Owen, because Brett was the one that got me on the radar of Jim Ross and everyone. So when that starts to happen, and then you get this influx, because there was a lot of talent out there, just nobody knew about it. There is a sense of camaraderie, because you essentially came from nowhere, and now suddenly you're on TV in front of 120 countries or whatever it is.
Does the STFU hurt like hell?
The STFU will legitimately knock you out if you are already trapped in a ladder. That I can say. Watch the TLC.
Sounds like experience.
Yeah. Watch the TLC match from Toronto back, and I'm trapped in a ladder and the STFU. Watch that little segment back and see what happens.
There's some sleeping. There's a quick nap.
There's a quick nap in there.
Yeah.
SGG, we got to let him go. Any last things for Edge?
Yeah, just my last question. I mean, we were talking about your career before you got on, and just like you've done it all in terms of the titles that you can hold in WWE. Every title that was available on any show that you had it. King of the Ring, Money in the Bank, Royal Rumble, you did it all. But now you're back. The Universal Championship wasn't around when you were active. Is that one more that you're looking to add to the trophy case, or are you satisfied with where you are?
I don't know. I guess I got to figure out what the lineage of the World Heavyweight Championship was, because I never lost it. So, there might be a story there one day. We'll see.
Wait, well, by the way, good luck figuring it out, because they switched the titles a few months ago, and I can't remember anymore.
And if it's that hard to figure out, then we probably won't go there. But honestly, I want to get in there, and I just want to try and help some talent make the next step. And I think there's a lot of talent there that can. And that was done for me by the Mr. Perfects and the Owens and the Bad News and the Rick Martells and the Ric Flairs and that, like all of those names that I mentioned, Undertaker, Shawn Michaels, like all of those guys were instrumental in me making that final step. And if I can help do that, then that's paying it forward. And I didn't feel like I fully got to do that when I was forced to retire. I was just starting to, and I really want to do that in this last run of Edge.
So you can tell us, here's our big quotable moment. You can tell us with confidence that Edge will be around when crowds come back to WWE.
Yes.
Oh yeah. I'm not coming back just for one crowd night. I need to feel that again. So that's definitive.
That is wonderful news for all of us, man. The movie is out July 10th, next Friday, Money Plane. Go watch it everywhere you can find movies online. Edge, anytime you ever want to talk, it's really a pleasure getting to have you. We're so glad as fans that you're back.
Thanks, man. It's good to be back, man. That's just how I'm looking at it. This is all just a huge gift that fell in my lap, and I just want to enjoy it and soak it all in.
Oh, us too, man. Thank you so much.
I'll keep waving the banner.
All right. That's right. Official Edgehead.
All right. Peace, dude. Thanks, Edge.
Bye-bye.
There he is, Edge, ladies and gentlemen. SGG. What a guy. Wait, what a great space he appears to be in, too.
I know. I mean, and I'm glad to hear that he's going to stick around and be back, like, for some crowd shows, because...
Dude, it didn't sound like... By the way, I'll... Go ahead.
Yeah, I mean, I'm looking forward to him getting in there with some of those guys.
No. Go ahead. Give credit where credit's due. You remember the argument we had?
Oh, yeah. You're right.
I said he was coming back. I said it was a real comeback.
Yeah.
This is such good news, though. I was scared we'd never get the crowd. I was scared that would be it, and we would never get it. So it's great news.
No, and, like, he's allowed to recover while there's no crowd shows going on. He's not missing anything. And then probably right about the time when we go back, he'll be back.
Yeah, I mean, that's the one thing I didn't ask him. We didn't ask for a specific timeline, but I mean, I think the tricep it depends, like 3, 6, 7
Yeah, you did,
months.
but I don't think he had an answer yet. It might take like a little bit more rehab and like figuring out exactly where he is versus like the typical timetable. But he said he's guaranteed to come back.
Guaranteed to be here when
That's all
crowds are
you
here.
want.
So, well, listen, maybe we'll do a regular show next week. We'll come back. We'll break down everything that happens on the Great American Bash and the AEW free preview that they got going on this week.